Here we go. Good morning, Mr. Shell. Thank you. Mr. Shell, do you work? Yes. What kind of work do you do? I drive the small bus. I go from Brooklyn to Manhattan. Are you self-employed or do you work for a company? Company. What is the name of that company? Smith Street Van. Is there a particular area that you work in? So, Brooklyn, 8th Avenue towards Manhattan, East Broadway. Is the company that you work for the only company that works in those areas? Yes, we have the route, 8th Avenue and Chinatown. Mr. Shell, is the company that you work for the only company that works in those areas, or are there other companies that work in those areas? Yeah, there are other companies also. Do you know anyone by the name of Joe Smith? Yeah, Joe Smith, yes. How do you know that individual? Yeah, I also drive. I recognize him. I got to know him from driving. Does he work in the same company that you work for? They're different. Just to clarify, he works for a different van company? Yes, correct. Do you see that man in the courtroom today? Yes. Directing your attention to April 21st, 2016. Do you remember that day? Yes, I remember it. At approximately 6 p.m., what were you doing? I'm sorry? I went from Manhattan, East Broadway, driving to Brooklyn, 7th Avenue, 55th Street to unload the customers. So when I was driving, he suddenly drove to right in front of my vehicle and stopped his vehicle. Mr. Shell, so you were dropping off passengers at approximately 6 p.m. where, just to clarify? 7th Avenue, 55th Street. Is that in Brooklyn? Brooklyn. And at that time, who drove by your van? That's Joe Smith. He was driving and he drove to right in front of me and suddenly stopped. What happened after he stopped his vehicle in front of yours? From his hand, he got one of the screwdrivers, and he chased to right in front of me. I would like to break this down, Mr. Shell. So step by step. Yeah. Did the defendant step out of his vehicle after he stopped his car in front of yours? Yes, he got out of his own vehicle. And you said he had a screwdriver. How? Where was he holding it? He got it from the vehicle, that screwdriver. When you saw the screwdriver, where was it? In his right hand. Did the defendant approach you at that time? Yes, he approached next to my vehicle. What side of your car did he come up on? The driver's steering wheel side, the left side. By the driver's seat where you were sitting, is that accurate? Yes, the driver's side. What happened after he approached the driver's side of your car with the screwdriver? I was afraid, so I braked immediately and the safety key. I pressed on the safety key and then he tried to open up by the handle of the door. So he tried to pull it, so I was afraid. I took out my phone, I called 911, and then I have the window closed, and then he used a screwdriver and he stabbed it, poked into my window, and then he went to his own car after he poked into the window, and then he drove away. And then he unloaded all the customers from my car. I was a few blocks away 2 to 3 blocks away from him, and then I followed him. Okay, Mr. Shell, I would like to take this step by step. So just a moment. When this incident was occurring with the screwdriver, when he came up to your car, did the defendant say anything to you? Yes, he said that you call the police again, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to poke you to death. Where was the screwdriver when he was saying this? He was holding it in his right hand. How did it make you feel when he said that? I was extremely scared. And you said you called 911? Yes, I held out my phone. Yes, I was afraid. Did the police respond as a result of your 911 call? So he was running away, and before I even dialed through, I followed him. When you say running away, do you mean he was running away on foot or driving away in his car? He was driving away. Did you end up making a report about what happened, that incident? Did you make a police report? Yes. If you know, was he arrested as a result of that report? Yes, the police came right away and then immediately took out his screwdriver. Was he arrested at that point when he took out his screwdriver, or at a later point, if you know? So he took out, so the police officers took, so the screwdriver was taken out, and then he found someone who can talk with the police, and they happened to know the police, and they did not arrest him. Did you, after that, make a report with the police? Yes, he did not get arrested, so immediately I went to Manhattan DA to have an order of protection issued. Okay, Mr. Shell, did you make a report with the Brooklyn Police Precinct about what happened later on? Yes. And do you know if, after that, this defendant was arrested? Yes. Directing your attention to July 9, 2017. Yes. Do you remember that day? Yes, I remember it. At approximately 8:50 a.m., what were you doing on that day? I went to work. Where were you? What were you doing at that time? I was walking. Do you recall where you were walking? In 8th Avenue, 55th Street. Is that in Brooklyn? Brooklyn. What if anything happened at that time when you were walking? I was walking on 8th Avenue, 55th Street by the door number, and then I saw Joe Smith, and then he drove his car. He saw me, and he stopped. So he got out of his vehicle. One of his feet was on the ground, so he pointed to me, and he said, within 2 days, you have to cancel the order of protection. If you don't cancel it, I will kill you. I will beat you to death, and then he can run to China. When the defendant stopped the car as you were walking, how far away did he stop from you? It's face to face, about 1 meter, about 1 meter. When he said those things to you, how did it make you feel? I was very afraid. I called 911 right away. Did the police respond? Yes. Did you make a report? Yes. What happened when the police officers responded to the scene? The police went to look for him right away. He'd already driven away. How do you know the police went to look for him? The police told me sit in the police car. And you drove around with the police officers, is that correct? Yes. And the defendant was no longer there, is that accurate? Correct. He had already driven away. If you know, was he subsequently arrested for that report that you made that day? Yes, he was arrested. The police asked me to go in there and to try to find out who it is.